When are you going to do a face reveal? Can you do a face reveal and show your face? Will you do a face reveal for the 500,000
When will
special?
you do a face reveal?
Do you promise to make a
You
face
should
reveal
do a
at
face
500,000
reveal.
subs?
I want to see
When are you going to do a face reveal?
reveal.
Alright, it's time. Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Armstrong, and I'm the creator behind the CoasterFan2105 YouTube channel. Welcome to the 500,000 subscriber special and face reveal video. Now, before we get any further, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to the channel and following me over these many years. It really is surreal in a way that I can't even put into words to think that over 500,000 people are now subscribed to my YouTube channel and follow me in the videos I post. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to each and every one of you. Now, some of you are probably thinking, Mike, didn't you already do a face reveal? And the answer to that is yes. In my auto train video that I did last year, I snuck a clip of myself in toward the end of the video, and then I also worked on that video with Amtrak's social media team last year. But I wanted to take this opportunity, because a lot of you have been asking me for an official face reveal for quite a while now, so I wanted to introduce myself and say hello and, whatnot. And now that you know what I look like, all of you know what I look like now, this really opens up the door for me to appear in more of my content on this page in the future. So that's always an option. Now for the 500,000 subscriber special. I was trying to come up with an idea of something that I hadn't done before, and I realized that since we're, at least by some accounts, at the end of another decade, and I've never done a top 10 video before, thought it'd be kind of neat to do a top 10 railroad events that I saw of the last decade. So, without further delay, here it is, the top 10 railroad events that I saw during the 2010s. It's time for the top 10 railroad events I saw over the last decade. There were a lot of exciting things to happen to railroads in the United States during the 2010s. Here's my pick for the top 10 railroad events I saw over the last decade. Number 10. Santa Fe 3751 Steam Excursion to the Grand Canyon. Santa Fe 3751 is a large excursion steam locomotive based in Los Angeles, California. However, it's not all that often that this locomotive gets to stretch its legs on a long, multi-day excursion trip. That's why it was a big deal when the locomotive got to pull a week-long special excursion to the Grand Canyon and return back in 2012. This was the longest excursion the 3751 made since 2002, and people from all over the country came to follow or ride on the train. While this excursion was super exciting to see, we still have several even more exciting and noteworthy events to get to before we reach number 1. Number 9. Amtrak F59 PHI Locomotive Retirement. The F59 PHI is a passenger diesel locomotive that is mainly used on commuter and intercity trains. Amtrak had 21 of these locomotives on lease for Pacific Surfliner and Cascade service from the late 1990s until early 2019, at which time they were returned from their lease and then sold to the Chicago Metra commuter train service. The last 2 of these locomotives were pulled from service in late February of that year, bringing to a close a chapter in intercity passenger rail history. I included the F59 retirement on this list because these are the locomotives I grew up with on my local passenger trains, and I saw them in service for many, many years. It was quite an experience to see them in their final days of service as one by one they were replaced with new Charger locomotives built by Siemens. Number 8. Cass Scenic Railroad Climax Restoration. A number of steam locomotives have been restored over the years, but this is among the most interesting I've ever heard of. Cass Scenic Railroad No. 9 is a Climax logging locomotive built to a 3-truck design. I saw this locomotive in November of 2019, shortly after the locomotive was restored to operation. This restoration was noteworthy not only because Climaxes are incredibly rare, with less than 5 currently operating in the world, but also because it was one of the longest and most thorough restorations I've ever seen. When the locomotive arrived at Cass in 1970, it was very worn out and many of the parts on it were beyond usable. Starting in the early 2000s and lasting almost 20 years, up to 2019, the Cass Scenic Railroad restored Climax No. 9 to an almost factory-new condition. Today, the locomotive looks just as good as it did when it first rolled off the assembly line in 1919. Number 7. AEM-7 Electric Locomotive Farewell Excursion and Retirement. Locomotives come and go, but some leave more of a mark than others. The AEM-7 was the locomotive that saved Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. It brought increased speeds and better reliability to a critical passenger rail corridor that now sees tens of millions of passengers each year. With over 37 years and 220 million miles of service, Amtrak pulled off something special on June 18, 2016, a final farewell excursion for this locomotive that was loved by fans and railroaders alike. While farewell excursions are not unheard of, they are exceptionally rare for Amtrak, so this was definitely a welcome surprise for the much celebrated AEM-7. Farewell, flying toaster, you served the railroad well. Number 6. The Norfolk and Western 611 Steam Locomotive Restoration and Trip to the Strasburg Railroad. Seeing mainline steam locomotives in the 21st century is a big deal, so when the Virginia Museum of Transportation announced that they would be returning Norfolk and Western 611 to operation once again, rail fans went wild. 611 is one of the most famous steam locomotives in the United States, so a lot of people were understandably very excited to see the locomotive return to the rails, particularly those in the eastern part of the country. In 2015, the locomotive began its second excursion career, pulling mainline excursions out of Roanoke, Virginia. During that year, 611 participated in the very end of the Norfolk Southern 21st Century Steam program, and then made several independent excursions the following 2 years. But the excitement wasn't over. In 2019, the Virginia Museum of Transportation and the Strasburg Railroad worked together to bring about one of the most exciting steam gatherings of the decade, the Norfolk and Western Steam Reunion. For the first time since the end of mainline steam, Strasburg Railroad's Norfolk and Western locomotive number 475 was reunited with another N&W steam locomotive, the 611. The month-long event drew thousands of visitors from all over and was a big hit. Number 5. Amtrak's 40th Anniversary Celebration. Anniversary celebrations are often a big deal, and Amtrak pulled out all the stops in 2011 for their 40th anniversary. The railroad painted up 4 locomotives in specially adapted, previously used Amtrak paint schemes and placed them into service on Amtrak trains all over the country. They also put together a special 40th anniversary exhibit train that spent the year touring the country, filled with interactive displays depicting the history of Amtrak. How cool! Number 4. The startup of Brightline, America's first private passenger rail service in many decades. When most people think of passenger trains in the United States, they don't think of privately run companies providing inner-city passenger service. However, in 2018, a new service in Florida became an exception to that rule. Brightline is a brand new passenger service that runs between Miami and West Palm Beach, Florida, with a promise to eventually link up with Orlando and possibly even points beyond. The train service was originally started by a group called All Aboard Florida. It has since partnered with Richard Branson and has been rebranded as Virgin Trains USA. This is the first privately run inner-city passenger rail service to operate in the United States in several decades, so it will be interesting to see what will happen in the coming years. Could this be a new future for passenger train service in the United States, or will this be a one-off exception? Only the future will tell. Number 3. New Tier 4 low-pollution locomotives. The decade of the 2010s was marked with a lot of changes to the American railroad landscape. One of the biggest was the introduction of new Tier 4 clean air locomotives for both passenger and freight rail use. The United States Environmental Protection Agency has designated certain rules regarding particle emissions from diesel engines, including railroad locomotives. The newest and most stringent regulations, known as Tier 4, came into full effect in 2015. While old locomotives that don't meet Tier 4 are still allowed to operate, Newly built locomotives must meet these regulations unless granted exhaust credit exemptions by the EPA. Needless to say, this has already begun to drastically change the face of modern diesel locomotives in the United States. Many freight railroads and several passenger rail services have already purchased new Tier 4 locomotives and in some cases have already opted to upgrade their entire fleet. While visually the new Tier 4 freight locomotives largely resemble previous offerings, the new passenger locomotives are quite a departure from previously built models, giving off quite the modern vibe. It will be interesting to see what will happen in the next decade as more and more older locomotives are retired and replaced with new Tier 4 units. Number 2. Restoration of the Union Pacific 4014 Big Boy locomotive. It doesn't get much bigger than this, the restoration of one of the largest steam locomotives ever built. For years, most thought that no Big Boy locomotive would ever run again. Then, in 2012, the Union Pacific Railroad shocked the world when it announced that it was going to reacquire Locomotive 4014 from the Rail Giants Train Museum in Pomona, California and restore it to full operation for their steam program. When the locomotive was finally completed in 2019, it made a huge impression, attracting fans from all over the world to watch in awe as the locomotive traveled over almost the entire Union Pacific system. 4014 sure was a sight to behold, but believe it or not, there is still one more event that I think is even bigger than the Big Boy. Number 1. The Transcontinental Railroad 150th Anniversary Celebration. The importance of the completion of the first Transcontinental Railroad cannot be understated. It changed the history of the United States and the world forever. With the joining of the rails at Promontory Summit in May of 1869, goods and people could travel faster than ever from one side of the country to the other, spurring even greater industrial growth and progress. 150 years later, this is still one of the most important rail lines in the country, carrying thousands of trains each year. For the 150th anniversary in 2019, a near week-long celebration of events was held in Ogden, Utah, and the actual site of completion at Promontory Summit. It is because of the lasting impact of the Transcontinental Railroad that I have chosen this as the number 1 most important railroad event I saw of the 2010s. What did you think of my list? Is there anything you thought I should have included, or something that I put on the list that you don't think should be there? Would you have listed some of these events in a different order? Let me know in the comments below. Ah, there's a bald eagle. There we go, there's a bald eagle. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera, but there's a bald eagle that's flying across the lake right now. It's just absolutely beautiful here. That's one of the things that I love so much about being up here in the Pacific Northwest. There's just so much natural beauty all around. It's just, it's a really amazing place. But, oh, and there's a river otter down there too. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me for the 500,000 subscribers special. And as I just said before, if you have any comments about the list of the top 10 events that I picked, or if you have a different list that you'd like to share, please share that with me below in the comments. And, you know, certainly if you'd like to see more top 10 lists from me in the future, let me know about that as well. New videos right here on the YouTube channel every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and I also post a lot of great content on my other social media pages, including Facebook, Flickr, Instagram, so be sure to follow those as well. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Armstrong. I'll see you down the line. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Armstrong, and I'm the creator behind the CoasterFan2105 YouTube account. That was terrible. Welcome to the 500,000 subscriber special and face reveal. Now there's an airplane. Hello everyone. For those of you, wow, for Amtrak's social media department, and they post too long, much more concise, please. And if you follow any of my other social media pages, I post stuff on Flickr, Facebook, wow, that was a flub.